How do you pronounce
Yeah,
your surname?
Jermaine E.
That's what
It's
I thought.
just EE. Yep. The short story is my grandpa left China and he was on a boat, like not really a boat, but like a piece of wood, like
Oh, yeah.
just
Oh,
very small
wow.
one. And he was going south, and whenever he arrived to each country, they would translate his name. And of course, in Chinese, there's characters. So the name gets translated strangely. And so
Yeah.
by the time he reached Malaysia, it was EE.
I'm publishing this episode before leaving for Latvia to see my parents during their birthday month. I'm very lucky to still have them in my 50s. My guest, Jermaine E., who is the age of my older son, recently lost his mom. Jermaine asked to be a guest on my podcast so that he can share stories about her and about the product that he is launching as a tribute to her.
Let's just dive straight in. Why are you here today? What would you like to tell my audience? Let's just see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that question because as I was looking at your homepage, your website, I also thought I probably need to start with why am I doing a podcast to help women in midlife figure out their career pivot. So I'm here because of a simple reason. I'm on a podcast journey right now to honor my mom. So my mom passed away 5 months ago, and her whole life she spent raising four kids. I'm the oldest of four, and she has always put herself over everything. She has put everything over herself. So it's a pretty big difference because we grew up in a communal culture. In the Asian culture, it's about your family, it's about your community, it's about what the group needs over what the self needs. But now we're in the US, and we've been in the US for the last 30, 40 years of her life. And US is very individualistic. More people are solo entrepreneurs, solo aging, solo
Yeah.
everything to the end of
Yeah.
life. And so I wanted to share some stories about how my mom went from a small town girl from Malaysia to, she would never say this out loud, but to a millionaire in the US. How she reinvented herself after raising four kids, and some of the imposter syndrome and the struggles that she had to deal with to allow herself to even enjoy herself. And what I wish for her, which is the message what I would like to share often, is to take the baby steps to love herself more. Because I
Yeah.
think as she got older, she passed away when she was 61, and she was very young. And it was sudden, it was a stroke. But she was starting to go on that journey of learning how to spend the money that she had saved up and had made, because her whole life she was just saving for her kids. And so I'm here on a mission. I built a startup for her in her honor. And I am just on this journey of, I hope to share her story. And if a story helps one person, that would be great.
Well, thank you for sharing this. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your mother. I am about to travel to Latvia to see my parents. And I'm almost your mother's age. And I'm so lucky to still have my parents. But I don't know for how long. I never know when I travel if that would be the last time. And this is, I guess, why your message and the letter that Ava sent to me on your behalf resonated with me. So I'm really glad to have you here, Jermaine.
Thank you for having me. I know I'm not a predicted or typical guest. It's we often say there's so many men out there explaining what should women do. So I hope I don't come off this way. I hope you can see that this story, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking, how can I get through this podcast without crying, really?
Yeah,
Because it's all so fresh.
and if you cry, that's okay too. And I
Mhm.
might cry with you as well. I just um, finished burning a candle, and that candle was in honor of my friend who passed away. I was going through my closets and I found that candle, and I remembered when I bought it. That was when I was climbing some mountain and got a text message from my friend's daughter who said that her mom passed away. So I bought that candle, and somehow it coincided that it was a long candle and it just ended burning. But before she passed away, she sent me a message and asked if I would be in Latvia that summer. And I was not planning to go. And I said, no, I wouldn't. But then there was an emergency, business emergency, and I did fly to Latvia. And I had to choose if I would stay a few days with my parents or I would go visit her. And I was thinking, I still have time to visit her. I don't know about my parents. So I stayed with my parents. And when I came back, that's when I got that message. It turned out my friend knew about her terminal illness and she wanted to see me, but she didn't tell me. So you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
You really never know. You really, yeah. Do you find it at this time of the year, either the end of the year or start of the year? Because I've always journaled. I've always wrote down what I'm grateful for. And I have a lot of things to be grateful for, but I find it very hard to go through this process because I usually do it every first Sunday of the month. And I write in very detail what am I grateful for? And it's normally comes down to the fact that I'm healthy, the fact that my parents are healthy, and that I get to spend time with them. It normally comes down to the baseline. And the last 5 months, it's been very hard for me to write that because I am still super grateful. My dad is very healthy. I am super healthy. And I and as I mentioned before we hit record, I have a partner from Ukraine. So I'm always reminded of how lucky I am of, I don't have missiles flying over California.
Yeah.
And her family's still in Ukraine. And so I get this reminder of how blessed of a life I have. And yet it's so difficult to be grateful that, you know, that the year that I just had. And in fact, I'm actually sitting right here at my mom's desk in her office. And so when thinking about your friend, I think I try to tell myself to just how lucky am I to have had 34 years with one person? And I think maybe that's the only way to approach this.
Yes, and this is also my response to your saying that how can I cut through and get to this podcast? Because initially I was doubting. I was thinking maybe to decline, but I did want to just take a look at your whatever postings you had, and it resonated with me. And then I thought the same thought, we never know. Why would I decline somebody who is a different gender and just younger just because of that, if he has an important message? So I will let you to channel that message. Please speak about whatever you want your mom or what you're building to honor her.
Yeah, I think for me, it's very important that whoever's listening to this, walks away feeling like they, one, want to go call a loved one, and two, feel a little bit more courageous. Because I think that's what I would wish from my mom and my dad and everybody around me. So my mom came to the US in the late 70s. She went to Oklahoma, where basically there are no other Asians. And so just a few months ago in May, I actually went back to Oklahoma with her, with my little brother, my dad, and I. So we thought, oh, let's go look at where she started, where she stayed, where she started her first school, where she learned English. And she suggested that we go to the place where she had her first lunch. And surprisingly, it is still there. It's remodeled. It was a Burger King. So in her first place where she had her first lunch, we went into this Burger King and I suggested, why don't we order the same thing that you ate? And so she did. She ordered a chicken sandwich. And as we sat down, I had my camera, I hit record, and I asked her to tell me how was it like being 20 something years old, having just left her home and not speaking a new language into this place far, far away. It's not LA or New York that you've seen on the movie screens. It's
Yeah.
Oklahoma. And she said, yes, but first I need to split the sandwich in half because back in those days, that's all that I can afford. I ate half and saved the other half for dinner after I converted the dollar price to the home
Mm.
currency. And she teared up a little bit because I think in that moment she realized she never gave herself the time to look back at how far she came. I think it's always what's next? Can I, what to do for my kids? Can I keep building my business so that I have everything I need, not for myself, but to cover the whole family? And
Yeah.
so I think that moment caught on camera was so important to me. And, after she raised 4 kids during COVID, a lot of us were thinking about, what should we do with our life? We should spend more time with the people we care about. And during COVID, she was at a job. So she has an MBA, but because of language, she wasn't super confident about her English. And I thought she was great. But when she went back to find a job, she was like, oh, maybe I should just do a simple job. Like, forget my MBA degree, forget all the experience that I have in my life. Let me just do something simple. So I didn't agree. I think she's the best. So I think she should have gone for something much more. But where she landed, that she was comfortable, she was an admin in a logistics company. So in 8 years, she went from an admin helping doing data entry to being the VP of the imports department, which in the US, the import is the main business.
Mm.
And sometime during COVID, I asked her, hey, I think we're good, wouldn't you want to travel? Don't you want to see the world more? You talk about going to Amsterdam, you talk about going to Milan and all these places you want to see. If not now, when? And so her, with the support of myself and my dad, she started her own business. She started from having one client doing what she learned from logistics to slowly building up. And she built it all the way to a sustaining business with this office here in Pasadena and employees. And the most beautiful thing of it all for me personally is my office is right across from her. So literally out the door to the left. And so I got to spend a lot of time during lunch and after work, we went to the gym together with my dad. And so that was the biggest blessing because in the last 3 years, we got to spend so much time just getting to know each other as adults, as friends, as well as a parent. And so in this journey, we talked about a bucket list, and the people that mattered to her, the things that mattered. And so it uncovered that since she was a child, she wanted to go to the place where The Sound of Music was filmed in Salzburg. And for if you have European listeners, Europeans don't generally know this movie because
I
only
do.
Americans know this movie.
Yeah, I
Well,
do have European listeners, of course, because I'm European.
yeah, and for Germans and Austrians, they have no idea. Like, what is this movie, this Hollywood film in Salzburg? And so in July, this July, 6 months ago, we went to Salzburg and we visited all those places where Julie Andrews ran
Mm.
on the hills and the church that she got married in Mondosee in Austria. And somewhere along there, she told me, just like, who would have thought that this little girl in Malaysia would ended up here in this place where the movie was filmed? And and at the end of the trip, she flew over to Malaysia to see family. And 8 days later, she passed away. So I guess the lesson that I'm I'm looking to pass on is like, have these conversations with your family. Talk about the things that you've been putting off. Talk about, it doesn't have to be flying across the world, to go to a place. Because sometimes when I share this story, I feel like I have to acknowledge that it is a privilege to be able to fly across the world. But it's little things as small as she always loved dancing, and because she had kids, she stopped dancing. And so I say, hey, what about that Zumba class? What about the Zumba class at gym? And and she was shy. She didn't want to go. And my brother and I, we decided we're gonna go to the Zumba class with her because we know as soon as she steps in, she has friends, she feels good, she's gonna keep going. And that's what happened. So it's the little things. It's like, what have you been putting off that may be small, that maybe you should put that in your schedule and do it more intentionally so that you can look back in a year and say, even though the year has its up and downs, but I did this one thing for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I always wish for her. And the last 3 years, she really did that.
Yeah. The message that comes across to me after hearing what you just shared is that maybe you need somebody in your life who can encourage you to, do those things, because it sounds like your mom always put everything, herself more like on the second burner, so to say. And she was really lucky to have you and your brother and just her kids to encourage her to do things that she actually enjoyed.
Yeah. And, I think for me, it wasn't perfect too, because there's so many times that I travel with her. Like one time we were in Paris, and this is a memory that I have, that gets me, that taught me a lot. So we went to Paris a few years ago, and as I told my mom, hey, let's travel instead of for 1 week of travel, let's travel for 1 month. But on Monday to Friday, we're gonna go work at a co-working space.
Uh-huh.
So we can work LA time and travel Europe time.
Uh-huh.
And so we did that. It was all going really well. We were in Paris for 5 days. And 4 days later, she said, hey, I want to go see the Eiffel Tower. And and of course, me being her son, and I was like, but mom, we see it every day. We see it from the bridge, we see it from the hotel, we see it from everywhere. Like, do you really need to go see the Eiffel Tower? And of course she's like, it's okay, it's okay. We just continue. And then at some point, we were on the metro to the Eiffel Tower. She's like, I really want to see the Eiffel Tower. It's like you get to travel all the time. You get to see all these things, but I don't get to travel all the time. And I really want to see the Eiffel Tower. And as she's saying, she started getting more passionate and more emotional. And but what she didn't know is we were on the way there. We were on the way on the metro to the Eiffel Tower. So when we arrived, she was at the point where she was in tears. She was like, I never get to travel. And so when we're traveling, even though we want to work, I also want to see the Eiffel Tower. I want to see all the things, the Notre Dame and all these things. And we had this very tough conversation in front of the tower, when she realized that we arrived there. And it reminded me that, like, as I'm growing up, my mom's also growing up, and I wasn't always very intentional about showing her all the things that I liked, and that because I've seen it, so I don't think it's a big deal. So that was like my 10th time in Paris. And so I was like, it's okay, it's cool, but we don't need to go all the way there. And so that taught me a really big lesson. And maybe a mom listening to this can forward this episode to their kids.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how it's helpful.
I love that you are on this podcast and sharing these messages. My son edits videos that now we started cooperating, and he's 23, going to be 24 this spring. And when he edits them, he listens to what I'm talking about with my guests. And he actually suggested that I should expand my audience because he noticed that the intended audience on YouTube is not the audience that actually listens the most. It's more like your age and a decade older, 10 years older, something like 35 to 45 and 45 to 55, not after 55, that I was thinking would listen more. And I also was inspired by, there was a podcast episode that I heard about artists and how they cooperate to create generational bonds, stronger bonds. And that really resonated with me. So I think that this might be a really, really good message for also younger folks to listen, not just people my age and older. So thank you for sharing that. But I know that you also wanted to talk about the product that you are sharing, because I think that we might meet again and you can maybe come again and share us more when you have actually launched your product. And I know that you probably cannot share all the memories that you want about your mother, because, it's a lifetime, 61 years lived, and part of that was with you. So what is it that you're creating to honor?
Yeah. So the conversation that I had with my parents, we were sitting in a Thai restaurant right down the street from here. And what I realized was they were collectively and subconsciously a little bit unclear about where things are in terms of retirement. So my dad is more strategic in the way he thinks about his life and what he wants to build next. My mom, a very simple woman, works hard, saves money, and therefore she had a savings, but she didn't know how that translated into retirement. And so I think for many people, at least for 70% of Americans, at least, they don't have a will. So I thought if I built an AI that asks someone about their relationships, their assets, and their bucket lists, I can actually help them write a will. And especially for those who English is not their first language, going to a lawyer is very intimidating.
Yeah.
And for those who are somewhat successful in their life, to admit to another human being that they don't know something so deeply personal, like their estate plan, that stops a lot of people from going to a lawyer. And so with the way AI has been going, I just thought I can create a very well-tuned AI, exactly tuned to the law based on states. And this AI can talk to people in the language that they need to. And so that's the app. We're designing a conversational tool where that conversation can turn into a will, a healthcare directive, a power of attorney, just to help people gain a little bit of clarity in terms of what do we have today. And for me, this entire vision for my startup is that clarity is love in a practical form. And so if you're able to gain clarity in all aspects of your life, it is a way for you to love yourself and also to love people around you, to love the people that you care about by having, all your things organized properly. So that's the app. It's only out in California right now, and we are having a lot of design choices to make, a lot of legal things to check off. And so I think probably next year we'll be in more states.
Now, that's very interesting. So will it be legally binding then once, or is it just a tool that helps you to figure out how to talk to a lawyer?
Yeah, so there's all 50 states are different. So the safest thing to do is talk to a lawyer. But as we know, a lot of people cannot afford that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people go to Google, they go to ChatGPT. The main problem with ChatGPT and all the AI is that it's geared to give you an answer regardless of it being correct or not.
Mhm.
And so the biggest difference that we have is that we'll push back and say, well, we can't give you legal advice, but here's what you cannot do based on the best practices.
Mm.
So we'll push back and say, there's no such thing. The general advices are generally not good, right?
Mhm.
It's like when things are too general, it's just not good. So
Yeah.
everybody's situation's a little bit different. So we are able to create a will for you. We're able to create a health directive for you. But we fully acknowledge that if you have the resources, you probably should get a trust because that's the only way you can avoid probate.
Mhm.
And if you're listening to this and you don't understand what a probate is and what is trust, then the app is probably going to be helpful, right? The app
Okay.
is going to explain all of these things. And if you do want to talk to a lawyer after using the app, we'll export everything that you told us with your permission, and you can bring that to your lawyer. So it's already structured in a way that it will onboard you to the lawyer fairly quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and the app is not launched yet, as I understand, and you are expecting that it will be in all the states within a year. Is that?
It is launched in California for
Yeah.
Apple and Android.
Oh,
And by March 31st or 30, by the end of Q1, we should be in about 5 states.
okay.
So our next states are Washington, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, and New York. It's all due to legal reasons. We are working with lawyers in each state to make sure whatever we produce, the final product, is legally valid.
Mhm.
And just a tip, most states will accept a will that you type out, sign in front of two witnesses,
Yes.
or notary. Most
Mhm.
states will accept it.
Mhm.
It gets tricky because if you have two copies and when you type out something, you write something on it, your letters are not clean, like you wrote something that can be disputed, for example. So it gets a bit more complicated if it's like that. So our app just aims to create the cleanest version possible, but it's still on our users to sign it and sign it in front of witnesses because that's what makes it legal.
Oh, okay. They actually have to sign by hand. Okay.
They have to, and they would ideally have two witnesses that are not in their will. So the witnesses cannot stand to gain something from the will,
Right.
ideally. Yeah.
Yes. This was very interesting because we had a like a little agreement before we started this recording, and you sent me an electronically signed document, which I really liked because in Latvia we have this enforceable system. I'm saying we, even though I'm also American citizen, but there's a system that's enforceable that we have. Electronic signature that is valid and you don't need to sign by hand.
Mhm.
But so I was not sure if it's valid here the way you signed, and I trusted that you signed it and it's valid. But I was just curious about how this app would be working because I'm interested in that kind of thing. I have worked with documents for decades and translating
Mhm.
and between the countries, so it's very interesting. But as I'm hearing from you, it would just be like a preparation of a will, and then you go and execute it in front of witnesses and a notary.
Yeah. The challenge is that for the state of California, electronic notary is not accepted for a will, but it's
Mhm.
accepted for other financial documents.
Oh,
And so it's just so specific to every state.
yeah.
And all I can say is like, if someone can afford it, go to a lawyer. A lawyer is probably going to be more advantageous in a few factors. In they can cut through some questions faster and understand your situation from a human level.
Mhm.
However, the truth is like this is something I am struggling with the app, which is we are charging someone $179 to
That
get the
was my next
documents done,
question. Yeah, that was my next
right?
question.
So 179 with no upsell, no add-on services, just that.
Mhm.
If you go to a lawyer, let's say Los Angeles is more expensive, but let's say you go to a lawyer in Denver, and let's say your estate is not super complicated. You have one home, two kids, there's guardianship, simple things to pass on, a few 401k accounts. It will probably cost you about 1,500 to 2,000 to set up a trust and the process of funding the trust. And so I don't know how to bridge the gap for my users that I think they need a trust, but how do I get it to them with the price that they can and want to afford?
Mhm.
And so for me, having a trust is generally better than having a will, and having a will is generally better than not having one at all.
Mhm.
And so when I talk to lawyers, sometimes they'll say, it's too complicated. You need to, deal with all the different requirements for humans, and they have different wishes and different plans of passing on their things. And I completely agree, except for they can't afford them. And so does it mean that if someone cannot afford a lawyer that they shouldn't have one? So
Yeah.
we're just offering an alternative that we're going to do our best to design the best product possible. And so that's the journey that we're on.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say I'm building this in honor of my mother because she didn't have an estate plan until I started thinking about this project. And then we got a lawyer.
That's very interesting, and I'm curious to hear more. Just one more last question about this app. Your mom she was a U.S. citizen as well, right? But you
Mhm.
have a family in Malaysia, and you have a girlfriend who is Ukrainian. Would your app be helpful for somebody who has maybe heirs or people, family still in other countries and also in the US?
Short answer is no, because the laws in different countries are completely different. And the simple answer is you need to have a will in where you live, US, the jurisdiction here, as well as the country.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I thought.
So do both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I understand then that the app is to help you think through the matters, and maybe you would be more prepared. And if you want that, then yeah, the cost is approximately 179, you said?
It is exactly 179,
Mm-hmm.
and it is yearly because we allow for updates throughout the year. So we encourage people to update it all the time. And the way it would eventually work, we don't have this voice system yet, is you can actually just talk to the app and say, I just bought my first Swiss watch and I would like to give it to my youngest son when I do pass. You can just say that to the app. It's going to remember it. So the next time when you refresh your will or your health directive and everything, it will already be in there. So
Okay.
in this way, it helps you organize your life in some way.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jermaine. I am definitely curious. And if people are curious about you and what you do and what you offer, how can they find you?
I am everywhere at Jermaine, EEJERMAINE. Um, I went with my last name first and first name second because in the Chinese culture, we say our last name first. So I just decided, I'm just going to write my domain that way from now on.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and with my audience. And I hope to have another conversation with you sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I meant it when I said that I want Jermaine back on this podcast because I want to stay in touch with him and learn about what he's creating. As concerns me, after I return from Latvia, I will launch my course She Knows Now that I have mentioned a couple of times on this podcast. This course will be for those who want to start their business but don't know how or are not sure if they've got what it takes. If that's you, I get it. I've been in that space too. Sometimes people lose their self-confidence after trauma. That's what trauma does to us. But when you put everything down on a piece of paper or into a spreadsheet, you gain clarity. So the outcome of the course will be clarity, and hence the title, She Knows Now.